Living Local presents Biz Buzz 413 with your host, Jill Munson.
Hey, welcome back. I decided to make it a two-parter. That's what happens when you have a really awesome topic. So this is Biz Buzz 413, and I'm your host, Jill Munson, and I am lucky enough to be joined by Tom Kegelman he's the executive director of Home City Development, Inc. It's a nonprofit who does development mainly in Springfield, but then throughout, just finished a project in Pelham, and they're really doing some remarkable things. If you're just tuning into this and you didn't listen to part one, well, pause here, click out, go listen to part one, hear all about what we talked about with what's going on and some of the challenges in housing in Western Mass. And I've got to be honest, I've done a lot of work in this space recently writing, and Tom already taught me a few new things to think about. So go check that one out and then come back to part two. So, Tom, here we are. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the solutions. Now, I prefaced at the end of part one by saying, I think you'd be rich, and I'd probably be inviting myself over for Christmas if we if you had the answer, and I wish we did. But I do think that you have some thoughts as not only HCDI but also as Tom, in terms of you've been in this space for quite a while and you're seeing things. What are some of the thoughts you have as how we can start to mitigate some of what's going on around this, if you will, housing crisis here in Western Massachusetts?
Well, I'm a developer. I look at spreadsheets all day. I spend my time looking at regulations and trying to put together these projects. And it's a fairly technical way of looking at it. But I understand that the only way that this stuff happens is with the people in the community. It's really important to understand the local impact. There was recently a project by our sister organization, Valley CDC in Amherst, where I live. And a good friend of mine who has worked for years working with homeless and with housing issues in Amherst, and he was able to put together this really effective coalition of supporters for this project that Valley CDC was doing in Amherst. And although there was this usual barrage of complaints by the local butters, the strong outpouring of support that he was able to muster with local community leaders and bring to those hearings, I think really made a difference. It was still enormously time consuming, extremely expensive, delayed the project and added God knows how much money to the cost of the project. But, there was another project that another agency tried to build in Amherst, and it took 10 years to get that project through. And it was lawsuits and all sorts of stuff, people trying to keep that project from being built. In comparison, this was relatively short. It was only 1 year. But I think it's important for us to understand that without that community support, these things just don't get built. There's a rising movement in this country called YIMBY, yes, in my backyard, as opposed to the NIMBY, no in
yes.
Yeah.
I had to look up what that meant. I was reading I was writing this industry insight, and I'm like, what the heck is NIMBY and YIMBY? Yeah. But it's so fascinating though, because I literally, Tom, don't you feel like the same people who complain about the unhoused population? And now, don't get me wrong, not all of the unhoused. I actually used to work for the Friends of the Homeless, so I have a little bit of I was only in the kitchen, but I have a little bit of insight into not every single unhoused individual would be able to be housable or chooses to be housable. That said, that's not the higher percentage, right? And we're not just talking. I think one of the misnomers, and I was just writing about this, is this idea of when you say, not you, but in general, someone says affordable housing, people go and they think we're only talking about, the vouchers and no, affordable housing, when you look at the criteria, means the average, the me, probably maybe the you, that we can afford an affordable, safe home. And there is yes, low income housing, which, do not get me wrong, is vital, but there is also a whole sector of affordable housing which is different, and we need to start to differentiate, I think, between those, so that we can have a clearer picture when people do finally go to the hearing, that they understand what they're actually hearing, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it is a little crazy. There's some pretty horrible examples of low-income housing that have, just been terribly run and earned a very, very poor reputation. And you know, it's true. I mean, there are places that should not have been allowed to continue in their state, and thankfully, many of them have been cleaned up, and people have learned how to take those folks out of the business.
Right.
The HUD has come in and taken, receiverships of some of these housing authorities that don't do their job. Cities have come in and prevented private developers from continuing to mismanage these resources. So it's it's unfortunate, but I can't believe that people who actually take the time to look at organizations like Valley CDC or Home City and see the projects that we do and see the um, the people who live there could reasonably come to the conclusion that this kind of housing next to their home would create a problem for them.
Well, and I
These
guess one
wonderful
question.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One question I have is, first of all, I don't care what somebody, like, not me personally, but like in general, it's like somebody's income level is only one small part of who they are. And, quite
Mhm.
frankly, without a home, you can't. I mean, we all know the cycle of poverty, right? And you can't have a job if you don't have a home. That is one of the biggest deterrents, because if you don't have a home, you don't have anything to put on the job
Right.
application. So if
Right.
and the cycle goes on and on. My question though is, so I'm the average, Jane Doe. How do I get involved? Like, how do I even know what to do to get involved, to have my voice be heard, unless if somebody was trying to build next to me, then I would probably be told there was going to be a meeting and I should go to this meeting, etc. Right? Like, they tried to put a bike path in my neighborhood and I was given all these flyers. I could attend this thing if I wanted to, right? But a lot of times you don't even know what you don't know in terms of how to get involved. So yes, voting, I would guess voting for my local legislators that believe what I believe is very important, and asking them that question, how they feel about housing and development. But what do I do to get involved? Like, that's where change probably could start, right?
Well, Massachusetts is blessed with many, many organizations that support affordable housing. The Massachusetts Housing Partnership has a whole division that is based basically on helping communities to understand affordable housing and to create
Okay.
communities of support within those communities for
And what
supporting affordable housing.
what was that organization again, just so everybody can make sure they hear
Massachusetts
it?
Housing Partnership,
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
and that's one group. The Citizens Housing and Planning Association, CHAPA, that's and they've extended now beyond Massachusetts and have a very strong network of people supporting these kinds of initiatives. But you can just go to your local website for the town.
Hmm.
Often you'll see there is a supportive housing committee or affordable housing in Massachusetts. And I'm trying to think, in Amherst, we have the Affordable Housing Trust. I was the chair of that at one time. And I think, you can find these organizations, get on their mailing list,
Yep.
and you'll be told.
I think what you said though is, like, that's the thing, right? Like, we have to be responsible, like, to do something. Like, it's and people, I know people feel overwhelmed. Right now our country feels
Mhm.
heavy. There's a lot going on, regardless of which side of the aisle you're on. But this is something that, when, and I did BizBuzz 413 a little while ago with Allison from the Employers Association talk about workforce. And you can't be a business owner and talk about workforce and not think about housing. I know that there's a lot of industries looking at Western Massachusetts, whether it's different things in the food sciences and some of the micro tech, and they want to come here. But the first question that the Economic Development Councils, all of them, up, down, across 413, they get asked is, what is it like to live here? What is the housing situation like? You mentioned, because I know you're in Amherst, a little further up in the Franklin County area, there was a great study, and I was trying to find the name of it as we were talking, but I know that it was part of the Franklin Regional Council of Governments, which is FRCOG. But they did a study about what they needed in terms of housing for that region. And I would absolutely advocate that people, because I can't find the name of it, that they Google it and look for it, because I think it's very interesting, as well as the study that the state put out called A Home for Everyone, which is good. It's interesting how some of the data for Western Mass, I don't know if I'm completely in line with, but those are just a couple resources if people are looking. So sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's great. That's great. We need to, but I would say to people who are overwhelmed with all the commitments, these planning board hearings or zoning board hearings, I think if they begin to see that there are people out there who are not just there to complain about it, if they could see that there are people who are proactively saying, yes, yes, please build this thing,
Yep.
we need more.
Do
Yeah,
you I know one of the things I wanted to mention, and I would love to do a part three with you, and maybe we can in the future, but today I probably will, Bill will definitely kill
yeah,
me. But one thing before I let you go, Tom, I wanted to ask. I know that one of the evolutions, and I don't know that right now anyway, HCDI is involved with this, but could be in the future. But it's within this housing crisis space that the state has sort of transformed some of the restrictions around accessible dwelling units, which I didn't know that phrase and the term
it's a
ADU.
it's a great innovation, trying to open up the opportunities for less formal. You don't need a nonprofit developer to come in and, go through this multi-year process to get all these approvals and government subsidies. In many cases, just allowing people to build an accessory unit in their home
Right.
or beside their home and create these less formal ways for people to create additional units. That is, I think, a very important innovation that we should be exploring. How can we take existing housing and expand the opportunities with what we already have?
Yeah, I mean, and that's if people are listening and you're truly like I'm saying if people, no, when people are listening, you listener, the person that's listening right now, please do research that. Look up ADUs, accessible dwelling units, learn more about them and understand. Now it's the state has, this is from what I've learned, the state has its set, and then each community. So whether you're in Springfield or you're in, Amherst,
Mhm.
or Wilbraham, right? Everybody has their own, local stuff. But,
Right.
for instance, in a lot of these areas, you have a good amount of land, and you could, with all the right permitting and processing, but you could now at a less restricted level be able to build a unit. Now, this isn't, and I think this is one of the misnomers, this isn't meant to be something that you're Airbnb on the weekend. This is supposed to be, like if you consider like maybe like an in-law apartment, right? And that can be something that, maybe a young single mom could live in, right? That helps to solve part of this problem. And we're not taking up more space. The space is there, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I think
very
there's
interesting.
lots of opportunities for us to make better use of the resources that we already have. I mean, there's vacant space, we have all these people who had large families at one time and are now down to one or two people rattling around in a five-bedroom, three-bath home. Couldn't we figure out a way to
Yeah.
use that space more efficiently?
Sadly, we're out of time, but do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave us with? Because I heard a rumor that you're retiring, which can't be possible because you're only 29. So I don't understand how that is happening.
I think I want people to realize that this is not something that they can ignore, that it's going to creep into their backyard literally if they don't
Mm,
respond. And it's very important. It doesn't take much to just get a little bit involved in your local community and
yep.
try to do something to help. And if you want to send us money, you could go on to our website at Home City. Development.org and push the donate button
We would
because
love that.
we're working really hard to try to solve some of these problems.
Well, I am very grateful. I'm very grateful that I got to know you. I appreciate all of the work you've done for the organization. It's a shame that you're retiring, but I do think you probably deserve to have a little bit of, a life. But I have a feeling you'll always be involved because you are certainly passionate. So, to everyone listening, this has been another episode of BizBuzz 413. My special guest was Tom Kegelman, Executive Director of Home City Development. We were chatting all things housing. We're going to continue to unpack this issue because this is not a quick one, it is deep. And there's lots of layers of this onion we've got to peel. But I am your host, Jill Munson. I am grateful to have you listening. I am thankful to Bill Cole and the Living Local 413 Initiative for everything, including his focus and the organization's focus on the importance of housing in the 413. More to come. Stay tuned. Great episodes on the way. And thanks, everybody, for living right here in 413.
Biz Buzz 413 was brought to you by Living Local.